No.
Nope.
Beanie time.
It's finally happening, boys.
Oh, God.
Tim Pool is so happy right now. He is thrilled. He is bouncing off of the walls. He's jumping up and down on the ceiling, pointing at news headlines and screaming, I said it! I told you! I told you! Greg Abbott, he's been watching my show! He's been listening to me! And maybe.
I don't know why he waited 8 years, but there we are.
You know, like finally, well, you know, sometimes it takes time for these things to sink in properly. So yeah, there's a lot of problems going on right now, and one of the big problems it has been for a long time the Texan border crisis. Ever since, ever since before Trump, ever since before Biden repealed a load of laws, which we'll get into. But for a long time, the Texan border has been a point of weakness for anybody who wants to get into the U.S. They can just walk in.
Yeah,
they can just take a stroll on in. Is something that seems to be a big problem, and is not something that I imagine that a lot of the people on the border towns, particularly El Paso and other places, are particularly happy with. I think it's El Paso. I'll find the information as we go through. So as a result of a lot of problems in the Supreme Court, Texas might be getting into fight mode. And if Greg Abbott has explicitly presented a statement that says, okay, so we're not allowed to protect the border. Well, we'll do it anyway. Now what? What are you going to do now? And it's a very interesting situation because as much as, you know, the beanie is a bit of a meme, there has been a lot of commentary from people saying this is, since the Civil War, the closest that any state has come to
secession.
To
states' rights.
And there's states' rights to a closed border, yeah.
Yeah, actually, Texas has it. It's a country in its own right anyway. Because
it's enormous.
It's the Lone Star State because of the defense of that border in the first place.
Yeah, but I'll go through some of the information. But first, website exists. Here's a Brokenomics on Islam, where Dan spoke to Robert Spencer. Pay £5 a month, and you can watch that. Moving on. Thank you very much. So just to give you an illustration of what has been going on, here is this Daily Mail article from the 14th, earlier on this month, that gives a lot of information. So the U.S. Border Patrol has recorded 2,063,692 encounters with undocumented immigrants in the 2023 fiscal year, which was just slightly down from the record high of 2022. Over Biden's first 3 years in office, the Border Patrol recorded a total of 5,940,511 encounters, which was a 277% increase from the same period during Trump's term from 2017 to 2019. Now, we've looked at the graphs that you've shown before, and you can see between the period when it was Trump and when it was Biden just how much that spiked up. 277% is a massive increase. And Daily Mail has some of their trademark hideous infographics.
Christ, yeah, that's crap.
To be able to show it's crap, but thankfully it is actually full of information.
Okay,
that's the one saving grace
there
of it.
Somewhere.
Yeah, if you've got a block of text, there is things to read.
Yeah. If you squint your eyes and go blind for a moment, I think you can understand what's being said here. So you can see the massive increase. You can see here 549,000 pounds or 247.5 tons of drugs have been seized at the border, which includes 13.5 tons of fentanyl.
That's just in 2023.
Just in 2023. 80 people on the FBI terror watch list were caught at the border. The migration, we can map out.
How many weren't caught?
Well, yeah, that's a good question.
How many does it take to commit a terrorism?
Yeah, and you can see it was Eagle Pass in El Paso where a lot of them are coming through. And you can see we can map out the route that a lot of these people are taking. And the reason it goes beyond the border of Mexico is while a lot of these people are Mexican, as you can see from this handy little pie chart they've got here, there's a lot more than just Mexicans coming through, although they are still the majority at 16%. You've got Indians, you've got Cubans, you've got Colombians. Yeah, and you may be thinking to yourself, why are Indians?
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole subcontinent on the other side of the world. There's an ocean between India and America. But apparently they're coming over to parts of South America and then just taking a route up through Mexico to the border and sneaking into America that way. Presumably so they can become an HR manager or perhaps a manager at a local call center in an area near you.
I really don't get that, because there must be, like 100,000 plus Indians in the United States every single year just from legal immigration?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're Indian, why do you need to break in?
Well,
why?
That's the question.
I mean, why not? It's a bit of fun. Yeah.
Banned.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a banter.
But,
Yeah.
like, there's
As you can
rules
see,
there.
all the other places, Guatemala, Honduras, all South American countries, you can understand why they would. But why does India, why is it even in here? And why does it take up about, what was it? Oh, wait. Sorry. It's in 2% in 2018. That's still very strange.
Yeah.
That they would be doing that.
Yeah.
Also, lots of Chinese are being caught going through the southern border. I think it was something like 24,000 were being caught. And they've got lots of other figures here. So this is what they've been doing at the border area to try and prevent this. I think this razor wire was put up in 2021. And you can just see they're jumping over it. And of course, if they get caught in it, if they get cut up in it, this is Texas's fault.
Yeah.
This is Greg Abbott's fault personally. Not only did they get caught up, but Greg Abbott himself went there. He's a vicious bastard. It's Greg Abbott. And he personally cuts them up himself.
When they
Because
caught.
he enjoys it. He goes,
Gonna
now,
catch ya.
now it's time for my pound of flesh. That's what's going on. So this was a photo from September 28. So this has been going on for years.
Mhm.
Very recent images. You can see here's the U.S. patrol encounters by
More
year.
victims of Greg Abbott.
Yeah, more victims of Greg Abbott. Look at all of them victimized personally. He's basically a serial killer at this point. So here's a border patrol guard holding someone's screaming baby.
Throwing the child back onto the wire.
yeah, throwing the child onto. No, what appears to have
This is one for Greg.
what appears to have happened here, if we can infer from this image, is that some family has decided to bring their screaming child with them and then either hand or perhaps football throw their child over the barbed wire so that this
Parent of the year.
so that this
Can't just build a new
gentleman-
life in Mexico.
No,
No.
that's racist, Callum. Nobody, it's racist to have to live in Mexico.
So
Yeah.
I'll just risk killing a child. I'm a good parent.
Yep, not traumatizing to the children. Images of them all just waiting around at the razor wire for presumably these people to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So they can go either that or maybe these people are all just going to give them a leg up. Lines of thousands and thousands of people. A group of more than 1,000 immigrants walks toward a U.S. Border Patrol field processing center after they crossed the Rio Grande from Mexico in Eagle Pass, Texas. And look at that. More than 2,000 people.
Was it 6 million since Biden took office?
Yes.
That's more than
Double
22
whales.
American states.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's
Well, a happy family. They just want to come over here and start a new life for themselves. That's the story that we're always told, despite the fact that, once again, tons and tons of fentanyl, of heroin, of cocaine being brought across the border, people on FBI watch lists. And even if it was the case that they just wanted to come over and start a new life, too
Mexico-
bad.
But also, Mexico is habitable,
Yes.
not
Yeah.
Mars.
yeah.
Too
yeah.
bad.
Yes.
There isn't. Well, maybe there is in the UN Charter. I've not looked recently. Maybe they updated it, but there isn't a right to specifically live in the United States. Not that I'm aware of. In
No.
fact, I think that is it in the Bill of Rights? No, it's not in the Bill of Rights. That these bills of rights. This is all for American people, but this one particularly is for global. Just
Yeah,
everybody who's
Everybody's
ever been
allowed,
born,
yeah.
you can live here. And this has got a breakdown of a lot of the laws that Biden repealed that Trump had. Following a court battle, Biden rolled back a Trump-era policy known as Remain in Mexico. I like the
Yeah.
simplicity. Just remain in Mexico, please. You don't have to come over here. It's like a child trying to get over the baby barrier to come upstairs. Remain downstairs. You don't have to come up here. There's nothing that interesting for you. The official title of that was the Migrant Protection Protocols. The policy required asylum seekers to wait in Mexico for their immigration hearings to play out in the US. Presumably, just having to wait in Mexico was too straining on these people. It caused them immense suffering to know that they were trapped in the land of the orange filter. They go, I don't want to be orange anymore. I want the full range of colors. It's terrible down here. So that had to be repealed. Biden called the policy inhumane, and human rights groups said it put migrants at risk from criminal gangs in Mexico as they pleaded their asylum cases. About 70,000 people were returned to Mexico under the policy, which he rolled back in 2022 after a Supreme Court ruling allowed his administration to terminate the policy. Biden also officially ended Trump's zero-tolerance policy that allowed the U.S. to deport any adult who crossed the border illegally, which resulted... Get your tissues out, lads. In the separation of thousands of children and parents. Too bad, don't come.
Yeah, exactly.
As well, Biden eventually rolled back Title 42, the pandemic-era policy that allowed for quick expulsions of migrants, including asylum seekers, ostensibly on public health grounds. On a press conference this past Monday, Biden's Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas slammed Republican claims that the DHS is not enforcing laws at the border as false, presumably because there are no laws down there anymore. You can't be not enforcing the laws if they don't exist in the first place. Come on, Republicans, obviously. Also, Alejandro, that's a name that I presume you can trace back to the founding stock of America. I wonder if he would have any vested interest in making sure that all of his cousins can get into the country easily. Absolutely ridiculous situation. So, and all they had really to protect themselves was the guards that they have patrolling the border and the razor wire, because a lot of that border does not have a wall. So you just got the razor wire, and then Biden has not been happy with that. He was putting a suit against it. And as a result of all that, the Supreme Court decided that they're going to allow the Border Patrol agents to remove the razor wire. All of this is clearly a concentrated attack on the sovereignty of Texas. We have seen it in news reports for years, CNN, MSNBC, data analysts, political analysts saying that what they are intending to do is change Texas from being a red to a purple and then into a blue state. And the way to do that easily is to replace the native population there, replace the white population there. Because if you have lots of foreigners coming over and you say immediately, we are going to give you free housing, we are going to give you everything that you want, we're going to give you money for free, just vote for us. Obviously. Obviously.
So they're going to get the vote as well then. They are going to get the vote, because that's what they're doing in Wales as well. And, and this is, as soon as they get a settled house or a biometric ID, you can vote.
Well, perhaps at the moment it is still a Republican state for the most part, but those cities are very blue. In Texas, it's the counties.
Do you remember how the Americans took Texas? Mass immigration of Americans into the province of Texas,
where they kicked out all of those Mexicans, right?
Yeah, that led to the Mexican-American War. But they actually did start mass immigration. You would have thought a state that had been through that, I suppose they have, taken on the note that maybe this is a threat to their sovereignty.
Yeah, so what happened was it was a 5-4 decision. I don't think they've released the exact composition of that decision, but Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh all said that they were the ones who voted against it. So we had the 4 conservative members say no, and then you had, what's her name? Amy Coney Barrett siding with all of the other ones, or the other 5. So people were pointing out that there is a trend between those. There are commonalities between those who all voted in favor of allowing the federal government to cut the razor wire. So the brief order noted that 4 conservative members of the 9 Justice Court would have rejected the government's request. The Biden administration says the wire prevents agents from reaching migrants who have already crossed the border into the US. Because, if somebody breaks into your home and trips over and stabs themselves with a knife by accident, that's your fault.
Shouldn't have left the knife out.
That's your fault, and you need to give them immediate medical attention. Texas sued after Border Patrol agents cut through some razor wire, claiming the agents had trespassed and damaged state property. Federal judge ruled out for the Biden administration, but the New Orleans-based Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals last month reversed that decision, which is what seemingly got the Supreme Court involved because it was becoming a big thing, and the Biden administration is being openly aggressive to Texas, openly trying to attack Texas, because that's what I see, this kind of mass illegal immigration of millions of people every single year. It is an invading force being sponsored by the federal government because they hate you. If you think that you live in a country that respects your rights and you're a white Texan, I'm sorry to break it to you, they hate you and they want you replaced with Mexicans. That's the clear sign. That's clearly what is happening here. What happened in response to this? Greg Abbott went, "Oh no, the Supreme Court doesn't want me to do this anyway." They're just going to keep doing it. They're going to keep putting that razor wire out there. For what little it does, at least it's something. That's as far as I can see. So that one's going up in.
Have they got any landmines?
Well, not yet. But if they come out from under the federal government's thumb, maybe.
So lost the Ukrainians for some.
The problem is that nobody treats these as what they are. Like I class even into Britain. There's an ocean between France and Britain as well. And what is happening is a clear invasion. It may be a lot of people wanting to obviously it's much better land and milk and honey. You go to Britain, we're going to get everything given to us. But there's a lot of people, compared to France, but they don't actually get anything. We've spoken to a lot of them, and they say we're on the streets in France, we're on the streets in Italy. We come over here and we get everything in the UK.
Striking,
but this should be treated as what it is. This is an invasion.
Even if it is just that they are as pure-hearted, that they just want to live a better life. Fact of the matter is, when they get over here, they group together, they form ethnic blocks that vote in their own ethnic interests, they behave in their own ethnic interests, they seclude themselves away from the rest of society, and then behave aggressively towards the natives because they know that they can, because they've got the power of the legal system on their side.
It was Alistair Cook that, in his letters to America, or from America actually, and he said that the United States, there was one flag, there was one language, and you all swore an oath of allegiance to that. And obviously the language was American or British English. And it's changed. So now you've got Hispanic, and it's mainly Hispanic in a lot of the cities. If you can't speak, if you can't speak Spanish, you won't get a job. And so those dividing lines are already there. But another striking similarity, an ex-customs officer has said to us that the biometric tests. So when we're processing the people coming off the dinghies, we're not even processing them to see if they're on a watch list.
No.
So we're doing the same thing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Greg Abbott released a statement about this, and I'll read through a bit of it because it's very clear in saying that you have betrayed us. You have decided to declare a form of war on us in a certain way. And so, no, we don't view you as a legitimate government anymore because you are attacking us.
Yeah.
Federal government has broken the compact between the United States and the states. The executive branch of the United States has a constitutional duty to enforce federal laws protecting states, including immigration laws on the books right now. President Biden has refused to enforce those laws and has even violated them. The result is that he has smashed records for illegal immigration. Despite having been put on notice in a series of letters, one of which I delivered to him by hand, President Biden has ignored Texas's demand that he perform his constitutional duties. Then it lists a few of them, and he continues, under President Biden's lawless border policies, more than 6 million illegal immigrants have crossed our southern border in just 3 years. That is more than the population of 33 different states in this country. This illegal refusal to protect the states has inflicted unprecedented harm on the people all across the United States. James Madison, Alex Hamilton, and the other visionaries who wrote the U.S. Constitution foresaw the states should not be left to the mercy of a lawless president who does nothing to stop external threats like cartels smuggling millions of illegal immigrants across the border. That is why the framers included both Article 4, Section 4, which promises the federal government shall protect each state against invasion, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which acknowledges the state's sovereign interest in protecting their borders. And then he just goes on to say that he has triggered Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which reserves to this state the right of self-defense. For these reasons, I have already declared an invasion under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 to invoke Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land and supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary. The Texas National Guard, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and other Texas personnel are acting on that authority, as well as state law to secure the Texas border. So this is a direct challenge.
Yeah.
He has been met with force, legal force, by the federal government saying, no, you can't protect yourself. And he has said, I have my own legal force, I have my own principles, I have my own legal precedent that I can refer to. And what are you going to do about it? Because now it seems that they are at an impasse. One of them is going to have to back down at this because the federal government is acting aggressively.
Or get arrested.
They are attacking. Well, maybe, but I doubt that the governor of a state is going to just get arrested when he has basically declared that I don't see you legitimate.
It's nigh impossible to change the Constitution of the United States. And whilst I don't know it, and if those are in it, then the law is on Madison.
The law,
the law is on the government.
But I was just going to say that the law is, but unfortunately the courts aren't anymore, and it's the same over here. You know, whatever the law says, you've got courts that aren't.
That's where it comes to a question of will.
Yeah,
who is going to have the will to stand by their position? Is it going to be that Greg Abbott will stand by this? Will he maintain the willpower to keep it going? will Biden have the willpower to try and enforce the Supreme Court ruling? I don't know which one it's going to end up being, but I do know that Biden and his administration don't really seem to be the most competent.
No.
They don't seem to have the force of will, and they certainly don't have the force of truth behind them. And so the impasse, I do think, is in Abbott's favor.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think it will end up in, a civil war or anything, as much as I've got the beanie on. But it is interesting that we're in a position right now where we've got a test of power.
Yeah.
Who is going to wield power more effectively? Who is going to wield power with the willpower to do what they need to maintain their force?
Yeah.
Dead Duck Biden hasn't got the capacity or the length of time to stay in to invoke anything, has he? Unless he.
But that's what I was just thinking.
Unless he literally brings in the armed forces.
Well, yeah, that is the thing that he would be able to do, is bring in the armed forces, because technically he has completely disobeyed a ruling from the Supreme Court and the ruling from the federal government. But will they do that?
Yeah.
That's the question. And the interesting thing is, as well, Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, has said that he is officially standing with Texas on this. And Radical Liberation, Stephen Carson, good guy, collected a list of a few of these people. So DeSantis has also thrown his hat in, said, we support you. Oklahoma, the neighboring state to Texas, has said that they are supporting Abbott in this. Kristi Noem of South Dakota as well. Gian Forte of Montana. Obviously, he's got Youngkin there. Also Missouri. So, and who's this? Brian Kemp, who is the Georgia governor as well. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
People noticed a pattern here. Noticed that something might be rising again.
South.
And somebody has said the boys are back in town.
Back in town.
Right. So what have we had so far in 24? And just in the first month, we had Jew tunnels in New York coming out of nowhere. We've had the Supreme Court saying it's illegal to protect the border, and then the Confederate rising up again, presumably. So this is a really interesting year. I'm quite enjoying so far to a certain degree. There is a certain spectacle to this whole thing. Now, like I say, I don't think that there will be a civil war rise, and there is some reason for that, which is we've been speaking a lot about demographics on this show so far today, and that's where demographics of Texas has come in, because as much as they are making the stand now, there has been a long time where Texas has been inundated with a flood of migration, which has very drastically altered the demographics of it, meaning that you have a population in Texas that, if called to it, if all of a sudden this did explode and Texas goes, right, time to wave that Dixie flag, my friends, that there's going to be a population who aren't going to be on side for that, who are going to be a hostile population inside that. And if I look through this is some of the USA data statistics on Texas, and it includes demographic information. If I scroll down through here it is. So you can see here that white non-Hispanic in that state makes up now 40.7%. If we go back, that was as of 2021. If we go back to 2013, it was 45% or so. Now, that's not that much of a change, but that is still, in the space of 8 years, a 5% shift. And that's not necessarily that the whites are leaving, it's that there is a critical mass of non-whites entering the state. And if we look further into this article that I got up here, where they did polls of the population of Texas and whether they approved of Greg Abbott's border policies, you can see Joe Biden. Here we go. Greg Abbott. You can see that they break it down by race, and the whites are majority in approving of it. Blacks, majority disapprove. Hispanic is more on the line. It's more of a 50-50, but still majority disapprove. Because think to yourself, I've just got across the border. I'm thinking to myself, I've still got family across that border. I want them to come and join me so that I can live my life with them still. Of course, you are more likely to be in favor of the policies that mean that it's easy for them to come across. You're not going to want them to have to wade over razor wire.
It's just not your motherland. What do you care?
Exactly. Why do you care that the whites are going to be the minority in that state very, very soon? And once again, they form demographic voting blocks, which lead to gentlemen like this being in power as a representative. Representative Joaquin Castro, a Democrat of Texas, whose name is literally Castro, called on President Biden to take control of the Texas National Guard if the state defies a Supreme Court ruling that allows U.S. Border Patrol officers to take down the border barriers. Governor Greg Abbott is using the Texas National Guard to obstruct and create chaos at the border. If Abbott is defying yesterday's Supreme Court ruling, President of the United States needs to establish sole federal control of the Texas National Guard now. He was also joined in this by Representative Greg Kasar, who's a Texas Democrat, who criticized Abbott for ordering more razor wire to be installed after the ruling. Greg Abbott's latest stunt after yesterday's Supreme Court order is malicious, unconstitutional, and against Texas values, because Texas values are Mexicans. Just as many Mexicans as possible. That's our number one value, is more Mexican equals more good. Why that doesn't apply to Mexico, which has the most concentrated population of Mexicans, I don't know, but as soon as Mexicans pass into America, onto Texas, they apparently become a valuable commodity. Interesting. Our country needs Congress to create a safer, humane, and more orderly immigration system, not razor wire to cut innocent people or laws that attack families. Now, I looked into Gregorio Kaiser, and on his Wikipedia it said he was born in Houston to Mexican immigrants and is Catholic. Imagine my surprise. He must be one of those based Catholic Hispanics I always hear about, who are definitely going to cross the border and vote Republican. That's what I keep being told. Oh, just let them in because they'll all vote Republican anyway. Or they'll vote for the people that are going to mean so their cousin, brothers, sisters, mothers, children can get into the country.
Yeah. It's their own personal bias in it. Again, like you've got in Scotland, Hamza Youssef, his concern is totally a selfish concern, isn't it? Because he's got family in Gaza. So he's got a bias there and he wants to bring them all here because of his little family. And this is the same sort of thing there, isn't it? People, they think about themselves rather than the bigger picture. And especially when the bigger picture here is, like we're getting across the UK and across the whole of the Western world, it is just dilute everything, and that's what we're having. It's all being diluted. There's no identity there anymore or history sort of thing.
So we'll see how the situation develops, but at the moment it seems we're at a bit of a standstill. Maybe it'll change, maybe it'll stay like this for a little while. We'll see.
Is there a donate page to Mr. Abbott?
I don't know. You can probably donate money to the US government. They'll be more than happy to take it.
How do I volunteer is more interesting.
Yeah.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as Lads Hour, this episode on the $2 billion question. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.